All right, welcome to the AFC West War Room, you guys, where rivals will collide. I'm your host, Cody Johnson. I'm joined with my other band of misfits, and we have a special guest, Meg, aka Ballers Meg. We're to do a quick roll call from the battlefield right now, so go ahead, fellas, and do your little call outs.
Hey, it's Tim here from Answer the Call, representing the LA Chargers.
And I'm brother one, Cory, co-host of Shovick Sports, and I am representing the Broncos.
I am Austin. I guess I'm brother two in this scenario, and I am representing the Kansas City Chiefs.
I am Matt, adopted brother number 3 with Orange Crush News 365, representing the Broncos as well.
Hi, I'm Meg. I am from Ballers Meg all over the socials, not podcasting just yet.
All right, guys, let's get into this intro. We got a crazy show for you guys and a little international takes on the way, so stay tuned.
Rolling out. Looking for the rookie record. Ball tip and oh my gosh! The double deflection. Set up the screen instead of floated over the middle. Jump ball and it's Bowers down the sideline. The rookie from Georgia with the game's first score. Mahomes. Touchdown. Mahomes.
All right, you guys, we are here in the war room. Again, as stated at the top of the episode, we are joined by Ballers Meg. I think we'll go with Meg out of respect, of course. I'm sure your first name's not Ballers, but thank you so much for joining us, Meg, all the way from the UK. It is very early where you are recording, so we appreciate you giving us your time. For the remaining of the show, you guys, we've got obviously the question of the week. We have the fan question of the week as well, and then we're going to be talking some Atlanta Falcons with Meg over here. Meg, do you want to kind of give a little get to know you kind of a thing for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, what's to know really? I have been a football fan for less than 2 years, which is a bit wild, but obviously in the UK, it's not something that we're like brought up watching American football. It's soccer over here more than anything. Got into the sport through some friends of mine a couple of years back. I do security on weekends in a bar, and we were obviously on a late shift and the game was on, and the rest is history kind of. It was love at first sight for me. I started watching the game and just became obsessed pretty quickly. I'm not sure how much detail you want me to go in right now, but like fell in love with the game and then lost a bet, which ended up with me forfeiting my choice of team.
Okay.
And therefore the Falcons became my team, and have been obsessed literally ever since. So yeah, that's kind of where that goes. And then Ballers was born through a kind of lack of people to talk to about the sport across here. I kind of was like, I just need a community. And I was quite poorly last year, and I thought, do you know what, I'm gonna set up, a TikTok live or whatever, and just kind of went from there. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, here we are.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you giving us your time. Gentlemen, it's good to see everybody. Thank you guys. For those that don't know behind the scenes, I was tardy, so I'll own up to that. But you guys looking good. How's everyone doing in the war room?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Doing good, other than you being late, but...
You're going to have to change the Chargers intro because that's now Broncos running back J.K. Dobbins who will score touchdowns.
Oh, that's true.
Facts.
Yep. And hopefully, Meg, your first game that you ever watched wasn't a Chargers game.
I actually don't think it was. I think it was a Vikings game.
Oh, see, there you go.
Okay.
And also, too, just a little funny thing behind the scenes is all of us have basically been doing the whole my NFL career where we've kind of been going back and forth. Tim, I stole your little tagline on the stitch I did with Cory, which I thought was kind of funny. Although
I saw that. That was cool.
Yeah, I have not gotten a Hall of Famer, I don't think quite yet, which I think these things are rigged. But anyways, it's been funny that we've been sending these to each other back and forth and just kind of seeing who can have a better career. And I kind of want to do like an obscure position rather than quarterback. I feel like I've only done quarterback lately.
So one of my fans actually asked me, do it again, but do it where it would be more realistic for how you would actually be QB. And I was like, I don't think they throw negative touchdowns. So
Yeah.
we'll see what I can do.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, you guys, let's start off with the first segment. We've got the question of the week by one of the War Room guys. And this week it's Cory. He's got the questions. So Cory, go ahead and take over segment 1 for us.
Yeah, so we've been, Tim, kind of the first ever question was, would you rather get punched by something? So we're not going to go there. But I do want to, I am curious. They did $1 hot dog night at Royals game last night. So if you go to a game, what's your go-to concession item? Like, what are you getting when you go to a game?
Meg, what's yours?
Okay, so I'm going to go hypothetical here because I have not been to a game. Yeah, I know it's shocking. But I think I'm going to go nachos. Is that a thing? Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is most definitely a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, nachos
It's
with that
against
hot
the law.
chili sauce.
Yeah, it's against the law to go to a sporting event and not get nachos. So that's my clear-cut winner because,
Okay.
yeah, nachos is like a religion to get at a ball game.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I agree.
All right, so
Who
Meg, yours
invited
is
him?
nachos. All right, so Meg is nachos. Matt, what's yours?
Actually, it's kind of funny because we all talked about it a couple weeks before the draft, and Austin and I were on the nachos train. So I too am going to go with nachos. It's something about like that stadium cheese and almost stale chips, but it just hits differently.
Yeah.
So I got to go with nachos myself.
Tim?
I guess I'm going to go nachos as well. Get on the nacho bandwagon. But I'm going to tell you, a good old-fashioned, just big old burger is all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no,
Cory?
you give me like some pulled pork nachos out of the helmet at like a baseball game.
Yeah.
Not only do the chips hit different, but for some reason, eating it out of a plastic helmet, it also just tastes different, right? Like it just, I don't know, it tastes like home.
Sounds
Yeah.
like so sanitary too.
Yeah, well, you could always get the hot dog shot out of the cannon that's rolling around on the ground and get like 40 different hands. So what's Green's baseball and all that. But
America.
So the Royals actually have best barbecue, obviously, in Kansas City. So I'm going pulled pork tater tots.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
You get that helmet full of tater tots. You get the pulled pork piled on there with barbecue sauce, onion, and it's worth the $20.
Okay.
So
All
to back Cory up on that, I actually went to the NFL draft when it was held in Kansas City, and not lying at all, Kansas City does have like the best barbecue around, and yeah, it's a little expensive, but like Cory said, it is definitely worth it. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
surprised.
funny.
You gotta have the beer, guys. Like, what are we doing? You're not.
I think
that was
that's
given.
yeah, that's
that's
baseline.
automatic.
You start with the beer and then you get food from there. Yes, that's baseline.
At this rate, I'm thinking you guys are eating nachos with water. Like, what are we doing here?
No.
No, so funny enough, I've actually only been to like 2 professional sports like games, and I went to the Warriors games 2 years in a row, and I've been to some minor league games. So my answer depends on what sport I'm going to go see. So like basketball, when I went to the Warriors, it's usually like a burger or like a barbecue sandwich or something like that. That's what I would go to. But for a baseball game, I'm going with a hot dog. I'm not a nachos fan because I hate the nacho cheese sauce. It's nauseating to me. Now, if it was like a taco salad.
Easy, bud.
Where's the
Easy.
facial expression? That's more insane than saying LP's number 2.
No, calm
No,
down there,
no.
bud.
Stadium
relax.
cheese. I'll like stadium cheese off the ground.
What are we doing? Cody,
Well,
All right.
out of all of us, I know who would survive military food. It's definitely Austin. So
But anyway, so I like for a baseball game, I don't know how you don't have either peanuts or sunflower seeds, a hot dog, and whatever,
peanuts and
like
sunflower
tacos.
seeds are the snack.
Sure,
Yeah.
but that's usually what I'm snacking on like all game. Like if I'm not eating a meal, I'm usually sunflower seeds. But if it's also not that, like we also have a bunch of taco trucks at our minor league team. So like where I'm just pounding a bunch of tacos. But yeah, no, I'm not on the nacho train, unfortunately. Sorry, guys.
You could go up to Seattle baseball stadium and get some fried grasshoppers if that intrigues anybody.
Hot take. Those aren't that bad.
I've heard people say that actually. Oh,
yeah, I haven't had them, but
grasshopper.
oh my gosh. Okay, so Meg, so out of like American food, I'm curious, like what's the wildest American food that you've heard of since you live in the UK? And I don't know if you've ever visited America, but is there like a food that you heard of from America that you think is a little like out there?
I don't get the whole like, what is it, the shrimp boils or lobster boils or whatever it is, like
yeah.
That I mean, I'm allergic to shellfish, so it's probably a bad idea anyway.
Yeah.
Like let's hard pass on that one. But yeah, like I was watching some guy online and he was just like throwing all this seasoning and shellfish and it actually made me feel ill. But most American food, like it's pretty, you get it here and it's decent. You know, like my go-to will be like make like a massive pot of mac and cheese, go for like a pizza, like a deep base pizza, or you know, like that kind of vibe. Philly cheesesteak. I'm here for it. Here for it. So yeah.
Does nobody else like seafood boils? Because I love seafood boils.
I love them.
Really? They're
love
phenomenal,
boils, man.
Yeah,
I love seafood.
Now, Meg, I'm sure that you can't enjoy it because you just said the shellfish allergy. So totally fine. Get that. Would obviously not put anyone's life in danger for food, unless you're Austin going for nacho cheese, and you might get some terminal disease from the stadium floor, licking the cheese off there. All right, guys. So that was segment 1 of Cory's question. So we're going to go into segment 2. This one was a fan question from Sports PSP. For all of us, I think around here know who Sports PSP is. He's pretty active on social media. He has a lot of short form content. And he had a pretty interesting question that was kind of AFC West focused. But the great thing about this question is it kind of trickles in a little bit to the Atlanta Falcons. So with that, the question of this week is, who is the better tight end? Is it Antonio Gates or is it Tony Gonzalez? So Meg, you go ahead and kick us off.
Oh man. I'm going for Gonzalez.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what my basis is yet, to be honest. I'm not really sure. I'm going with my gut here. Yeah.
Did you watch Antonio or did you watch Tony Gonzalez during I know that you mentioned that you've only been, a Falcons fan for just a couple of years, but sure, did you have any like highlights or see anything from the past that you liked about Tony Gonzalez?
Not particularly highlights as such, but I've got quite an active Discord chat and we talk about all sorts over there. And his name is one that we've spoken about a few times. Like, really, that's my only reference point to it as such. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that his name is just like in my head from one of those conversations, I guess. Probably underqualified to give you the answer to that one, to be fair.
No, that's totally fine. But you're siding with Tony Gonzalez, and I'm assuming that's a homer pick, which we would all do, right?
Yes.
What was that?
Tony Gonzalez as the homer pick, right?
Former Falcon.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, Matt or Tim, who would you pick?
Okay, so this actually can go either way. And honestly, there's not a wrong answer here. Now, obviously, for this show and this segment, I have to pick one, but an argument can be made for either one. They did have kind of different styles, where Gonzalez was kind of more athletic and he had a longer career. Obviously the receiving yards and the catches, up there all time, even among wide receivers. So it is really easy. Antonio Gates, I feel like he was, on a crowded roster. He had LaDainian Tomlinson. He had Vincent Jackson. He had a lot of other competition for targets where I feel that, Tony Gonzalez didn't. Now, I will say Tony Gonzalez did play a few more games than Antonio Gates. And so I kind of did a little breakdown to if Antonio Gates played 270 games, which is what Gonzalez played. Okay, so Gonzalez had 1,325 catches for 15,127 yards and 111 touchdowns. If Antonio Gates played 270, he would have 1,094 catches for 13,554 yards and 133 touchdowns. So his touchdowns would just go skyrocket even more than what he did. I mean, he already is the lead, the record holder for most touchdowns by a tight end. So that would just elevate that record even more. He doesn't quite catch him in the yards and he doesn't quite catch him in the catches. But like I said, he had a lot more talent. So I definitely watched a lot more Antonio Gates than I did Tony Gonzalez, but I'm not taking anything away from either one. So if I had to pick, I'm going Antonio Gates for the simple fact that he was a red zone monster. If it was in the red zone, he was getting that touchdown. So I'm going with Antonio Gates here.
All right. Matt, who would you pick?
I mean, this one was a tough one for me just because both of them were such prolific players and both of them are legends in their, in their own realm. But, if I'm looking at it from the aspect and the fact that Antonio Gates was undrafted and he broke all of Rod Smith's records, who also was undrafted, and look at his career, 2-time Super Bowl champion. And then he held those records for the longest time until Antonio Gates arrived. So then Antonio Gates breaks all those records, most receiving yards by an undrafted player, most receptions by an undrafted player. I love Tony Gonzalez. I can't disrespect the guy. I actually got the chance to meet him when I went to the Broncos and Saints, Thursday Night Football. He was coming out the tunnel and he took his time to shake everyone's hand around the stadium. Great guy. But as far as acolytes go, I got to go with Antonio Gates.
All right. Respect the answer. Cory and Austin, who are you guys picking? I think I already know Austin's answer, but go ahead and entertain us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of go with what Timmy said. Like, you can't have a wrong answer here. I mean, these are two of the best to ever do it. But this is more, I'm obviously picking Tony. Like, that's who I'm taking. But my favorite thing about Tony Gonzalez, and it could be just with what the league is now, but the only reason I could prefer Tony Gonzalez is because he was a hands catcher. Every pass he caught with his hands. And I know it's a pet peeve of mine. And it might be because I spent my whole childhood watching Tony Gonzalez catch everything with his hands. Because you're splitting hairs when you're going to try to debate these two, right? So it's going to come down to something that a little pet peeve per se. So you can't go wrong with either, but I would just prefer Tony Gonzalez because he was one of the last people to actually just, no matter what, use his hands to catch a football. And that's the best way and the correct way to catch a football. And that's really the difference, right? Because, I mean, they're both great. Like Tim said, Antonio Gates in the red zone was way better. Tony was more athletic. So either way.
All right.
So you're going with Tony Gonzalez because he's a hands catcher?
Yeah. You can't go wrong with either, though.
I will actually back Austin up on this for a second.
Here comes the friendship. Hold on.
Yeah. You definitely want to catch that ball, and you're taught, catch it like this, and you don't want the ball to be on your body. You want it to be out here. So, Tony Gonzalez had the strong hands. He caught with his hands. So I will back up Austin on why he thinks that Gonzalez is slightly better than Gates.
Yeah, there's nothing that really separates you. These both are record-breaking Hall of Fame tight ends. You're going to have to find some obscure reason to try to take one over the other.
Thanks for tuning into our instructional video. Well, I will say Shannon Sharp clears both of them, but either way, that's not the question.
He's not on the list, though, sir.
Yeah, I know.
Disqualified,
unfortunately.
Where's the mute button at?
You're right. Well, pipe down over there. Anyways, so between these two, look, we've been spoiled with what we were able to watch as we were growing up. Now, there's good tight ends today, right? But it's a different breed of how tight ends are now compared to what Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates and how they went about it. But I'm going to go with Tony as well. And just because, who else did the Chiefs have as receivers on those teams? Right? Like Timmy, you said. Stop.
Menace.
There was my point. But again, and it does suck. We talked the other night about, again, when he was talking about LT being number 2, right? No Super Bowls and playoffs. It does suck that we weren't able to see either one of these guys get to that point in their career, especially with Antonio Gates just being on that stacked Chargers team. But again, you look at it, that Chiefs offense wasn't a slouch either, right? So again, great tight ends. Just sucks that we weren't able to see him win Super Bowls, but I'm still going to go with Tony Gonzalez just based on the roster that the Chiefs had.
Okay, so hang on, timeout. So you're going to go with Tony Gonzalez, who had no competition over Antonio Gates.
Cody, here we go. No competition.
Had the competition.
That means you
Am
had.
I hearing this correctly? You're going to go with the tight end that had absolutely no competition on his team. He was the team versus Antonio Gates, who was maybe the third, fourth,
that means more people are
fifth option.
Before you guys fight, let me get my stadium nachos real quick.
Yeah. Cheese is on the ground.
Oh.
All right. So I'm going to just give my thoughts about the two, and I'm going to put the stats up here for a reason. Now, listen, we can all agree that these two are probably within the top, we'll just say 5 all-time tight ends that we could probably collectively make a list. Like, tight ends today are able to do what they do because these two were the example of it. Now, what I think is super impressive with Antonio Gates is he broke the touchdown record for a tight end in almost 400 less receptions. And I think he didn't spend I think it was one less year in the league than Tony Gonzalez. Now, Tony Gonzalez did go to the Falcons for 4 seasons, so he was able to continue a career. And Antonio Gates, what's impressive is previously was not a college football player. In fact, did basketball, was undrafted, and then had this stellar career. So very impressive. But I also want to direct your attention to Tony Gonzalez of what he did within the 17 years. He only missed 2 games his entire career, which is crazy. Within those 2 games, or within the 270 games that he played, he only fumbled the ball twice out of 1,300 touches. So not only is he catching the ball, but he's securing it, and he's reliable. And don't get me wrong, like, as much as Antonio Gates is a red zone threat, very athletic, he's probably one of one. I think in this head-to-head, if I had to choose, I would say Tony Gonzalez is the better of the two, because Tony Gonzalez, for a lot longer of a stretch, was the number 1 tight end for his team. And then when he went over to Atlanta, was again solidified as the number 1 tight end. He had no other person to take his position as tight end 1. So Tony Gonzalez, to me, career-wise and in general, I would say, in my opinion, is the better of the two.
Yeah, that's well said. And he even, again, when he even went to Atlanta, you think when guys change teams that there's going to be some regression. And there was slight regression, but he also had, Matt Ryan, and then Julio Jones was there for a little bit as well. So it's like he didn't really fall completely off. I mean, did he lose a step or two? Maybe, but he was still a good red zone target for the Falcons and what he was able to do there. So again, it's just kind of one of those where damned if you do, it doesn't matter who you pick. Yeah,
Cody, I appreciate you mentioning one of my favorite stats, and I forgot to do it, but your best ability is your availability. And that's not a stat that you see in box scores very often or anything, but what good are you if you're only giving me 10 games a year, right? So
right.
I appreciate you coming with the facts on that one.
Hey, numbers guy. As a numbers guy myself, I got to make sure I say the numbers,
See, I can back Cody up on this, on why he picked Gonzalez. I can't back Cory up on why he picked Gonzalez.
It fits the whole Genty argument.
Yeah, that's wild. So, Meg, I'm curious. So I know that you were mentioning that between these two players, it was a little bit tougher for you to pick, and obviously you sided with Gonzalez. But since you've been a Falcons fan, is there a player that you've seen that you've really admired that maybe doesn't get as much love on the Falcons team that you think that they should?
I think for me, I spent all last season talking about a rookie that barely got any game time. But if you watched the preseason, Casey Washington over at Atlanta right now, he's one to watch. Obviously, we've got such a decent wide receiver core anyway, so it's going to be tough for him to get on that slot. But obviously, watching him in the preseason was just, I mean, I had a notebook and I was going through it every game, play by play, and his name was the one that just kept coming up. And you know, he's one of those, when you know, maybe Bijan gets a little bit older, or when we're looking at, I mean, obviously we're bringing Darnell Mooney through right now, another probably underrated player, Darnell Mooney. You know, there's a few on our team that I just feel like, you know, there's the star of the show, which is, you know, your Bijan and obviously hopefully Penix coming up this season. But there's so much talk about our quarterback room and the Kirk Cousins situation that I think a lot of our players have kind of been not sidelined, but maybe not highlighted as much as they could be right now because, you know, off-season craziness. But yeah, I would say in terms of, you know, young players, Casey Washington, I think Darnell Mooney last season was phenomenal. Kadarrell Hodge, another really great player, doesn't get the recognition. You know, who's buying a Kadarrell Hodge jersey this year? I mean, I might just for sympathy. But, you know, do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot there that, you know, we're going to see. I think Jalen Walker's going to get a lot of attention. You know, obviously Penix is getting a lot of attention this season. I've burned my Kirk Cousins jersey. This is actually Calvin Ridley. It's not a Kirk Cousins, just to clarify. But
former Falcons great.
Yeah, I burned my Kirk Cousins jerseys last season in a fit of temper. So
okay, so yeah,
that is
so
one thing I'll never understand is burning a jersey.
Well, I think it's more figuratively than.
Yeah, it was not literal. Yeah. It was figurative.
No, I know, but there are fans that actually do literally burn the jerseys, and
yeah,
I just don't understand that.
I just ironed his name off the back. That's it.
Good. That's a cost-saving effect right there.
Yeah, it was always Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. So Meg, then when Michael Penix was drafted last year, but yet the Falcons had also signed Kirk Cousins, what was your thoughts when that transaction happened?
So obviously just time zone. I was at work. I was on a security shift when this happened. And the person who I lost the bet to and I were obviously, he's a Falcons fan as well. And we were messaging, like waiting for the pick to come. And we were like, surely we're going to do something great. We're going to, you know, there was so much talent on that draft. And then they picked Michael Penix. And I swear, the expletives are not appropriate right now. To repeat, I was so angry. I was like, we have just spent how much on Kirk Cousins and we have drafted this guy who isn't even the best QB in this draft, let's be honest.
Sure.
And we're pick 8, for goodness sake. Like, there is so many better options than Michael Penix. And I was furious, as was, you know, my friend. We were texting back, full capital letters, messaging back and forward. And over time, I gradually warmed to the idea of the fact that, you know, Kirk Cousins was coming back off injury from that Viking season. He was going to, well, he clearly struggled with speed. He clearly struggled with being hesitant. He was, you know, and so the more that we saw the start of the season, the more I softened anyway and was like, actually, this is a solid backup plan here. There's a long-term, you know, outlook here that we've maybe missed in the heat of the moment, the passion of the draft. Right. We've maybe like missed that little kind of nugget of, actually, we need a future plan. We're not really future-proof with Kirk Cousins. Don't know why we've given him this much money, like, and we're still obviously, look at where we are now. If they'd listened to me back then. But yeah, I was furious at the time, and then very quickly was okay about it.
And you're encouraged by Penix now? There's a little hesitation, I guess not.
By all accounts, he's had a very mixed time at the OTAs. He struggled on day one quite a lot. He was just missing silly points. But I think he's got it in him. I think he's young. I think he... I know we've had like Michael Vick and Matt Ryan and giving him coaching over the off season, specifically Matt Ryan, because nobody really wants to talk about Michael Vick, let's be honest. I've got a dog. We don't want to bring it up in front of him. But, Matt Ryan has been a steadfast coach by all accounts for Michael Penix, which I think is a good thing, because, it's translating into the NFL from college football, obviously, is not necessarily as straightforward as what people might think. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, I think I'm excited. He's the first left-handed QB since, and we can only hope that might be some sort of like sign from above that things could go well.
And there's no anything to derail his career with the Falcons in the future as well. So that way we don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, let's get to some of these comments. They're kind of circling back to the Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. So Jason Colenso, friend of the show, he's asking if Kels, aka Mr. Swift, where does he fit within these two? And is he a Hall of Famer? So Austin, since you're a Chiefs fan and you've been watching Kelsey since he's been in Chiefs Kingdom this whole time, I'd like your first thoughts on this.
He goes right above Gates and right below Gonzalez.
Okay.
It's still, I know, like statistically you can put up numbers and longevity and everything, but like it's still different eras, right? So that's not like a Taylor Swift pun or anything. They really different eras, but it's hard for me because I know Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez, there's no wrong answer, but like biased aside, like Tony Gonzalez would still be one of my best tight ends ever. So it'd be really hard for me to even think Kels would overtake Tony G. I know on a previous show I said I think Brock Bowers might become the greatest tight end to ever play, but we're going to have to wait 20 years for that. But right now I think Kels he's in the conversation at least, but I don't know if you could take him over, honestly, either of these two. Like without these two, the floor isn't really set for people like Gonzalez and the current tight ends. So he's in the conversation, but I still can't put him as one of the all-time greats.
Okay. Does anyone want to continue that?
I mean, he is going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, that's obvious. The Super Bowls and everything that he's done in his career. I mean, he's almost tied. He's almost broken a couple of Jerry Rice's postseason records. As a tight end, he's done that. So he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. He does still have a few notches that he needs to climb before he's as good or better than Tony Gonzalez, I feel like. So,
Meg, do you have any thoughts on that?
How controversial do you want me to be?
Hey, this is the war room. Say what you need.
I think Travis Kelce's massively overrated.
Oh, wow. I like that. All right. Talk to us.
Do tell.
Talk to us.
I feel like a lot of the attention that Travis Kelce gets is not necessarily because of his skill, but because of the people around him. I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes is the best ever, but I think that he has a certain way of making things happen, which sets Kelce up to look better than he is sometimes, if I'm honest. I can see Liam from my Discord in the comments, like tread carefully.
Shout out to being in the chats.
Yeah, it's an ongoing it's an ongoing battle that we have. My sister's a massive Chiefs fan because of Taylor Swift.
Okay.
So I just think that there's, you're talking a Falcons fan who's got Kyle Pitts, running around doing nothing right now. So it's not biased. It's just an observation.
All right, I appreciate it.
Can I get the first one to respond?
Yeah, of course. Go right ahead.
Well, I want to say two things. First of all, I know you're a Falcons fan, but I still love Kyle Pitts. You're talking about someone like Tony Gonzalez being around people who know how to like make him look better. Kyle Pitts for his whole career has been around people who have no idea how to use him.
Yeah, fair.
So I still love Kyle Pitts, and I only said I wanted to be the first one to respond because I don't want to say what she said about Travis Kelce is actually too far-fetched. It's really not, but that's part of sports, right? Like you have to get in the right system around the right people for things to happen. So I don't know if I'd say he's wildly overrated, but he has definitely been fortunate and blessed to be put in the situation that he is. And I do think it's kudos to him for making the most of it. But I want to say what she said is not wildly over. Like, he's never been the biggest. He's never been the fastest. He's never been the strongest. Like, we could go through lists of tight ends who are way better than him in either of those. What sets him apart is his situation, and he does have a good football IQ. So I'm not going to agree with him being wildly overrated, but I do want to say that there's really good ground to stand on with a statement like that.
Yeah.
We say it with quarterbacks, right? If the quarterback goes to a certain team, you think he'll be great. It's the same thing for all players, right? If you go to the Browns right now, man, the cards are really stacked against you. It doesn't matter the position. So I think it was a really valid point that he's just a very good situation.
And I don't hate Travis Kelce. I know that much as we have the kind of ongoing banter in the comments with Liam and stuff. I don't hate him. I just prefer Jason.
Fair.
I think we all prefer Jason at this
Jason
point.
is more likable. Jason is more likable, like, for sure. More relatable.
But no, to echo Austin's comments, what you're saying, Meg, it's definitely not the first time I've actually heard that, and not from like a talent standpoint. And one of the things I've always said about the Chiefs is what makes that offense so dangerous is when Pat Mahomes gets flushed out of the pocket and that play breaks down, there's nothing there. Him and Kelce are on the same page of, all right, now we're going backyard, schoolyard football, just run around until you get open. And those two have perfected it. And that's what makes that combination so dangerous. So what happens when you put Kelce in another system where they don't have that chemistry together? And there is no backyard football. There is no schoolyard run around, longest yard, try and see who gets open. So what happens if Kelce's in another system? I'm not taking away his talent. He is a prolific tight end. He will be in the Hall of Fame without question. But yeah, as far as him being overrated, again, not the first time I've heard that. And, I can kind of see him kind of like falling in that meter of greatest tight end of all. I think he's in the conversation. I just don't think he's going to be there. So, and I personally wanted Kyle Pitts when the trade rumors happened last season, because Denver, Cory and I talked about it. Denver's tight end room was atrocious. And I said, hey, Kyle Pitts is on the trade block. Go get him. Let's see what him and Bo Nix can do. So
he's still up there.
I would take him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's still swirling because we don't want him and he doesn't want us. So.
So Liam here with a great question asking if Kelce would still be as good if he was on another team, same position. I'm going to give my thoughts. I don't think so. And I think Travis Kelce is benefiting from a lot of things. A good quarterback, great offensive coach in Andy Reid. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a career that you're with a quarterback for a long period of time and you've gained a lot of success. I mean, you've gotten multiple Super Bowls out of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But like what Tony Gonzalez did, and Austin, you'll have to fact check me on this, but Tony Gonzalez didn't have the greatest of quarterback play and still was as productive as he was. And even at Atlanta, when he had Matt Ryan at the time was probably the more talented quarterback that Tony Gonzalez had on the Falcons before he retired. And Patrick Mahomes, by all accounts, will probably go down as somewhere within the top 10 of all-time quarterbacks, probably. Like, we can agree to that. And Travis Kelce being connected to him and Andy Reid has definitely benefited his career. Do I think Travis Kelce is extremely talented? I do, but I don't know if that means that he's going to go to like Detroit and do the exact same thing. I don't know if the circumstances set up for him to do the same thing. But I would also say like Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. I do think that there's a lot of things that are in place to make him the most successful. And I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes is overrated, but if he's in a different team, is he as successful as, 3 Super Bowls or whatever the number is? I think that there's a lot that's going the Chiefs' way because they were a smart organization on how they drafted, free agency, and keeping the core nucleus together, which is what benefited success. And I think Travis Kelce is one of the byproducts of, he just stuck around to a team that hit ultra success. They won because of him, but could he go somewhere else and turn it around? I don't know as well. Like in terms of like being like, you put him on any team, he makes them immediately better. Like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce is kind of like Marvin Harrison when he had Peyton Manning. those two were great together. But when Peyton Manning went somewhere else, he was phenomenal. Marvin Harrison didn't really have anything post Peyton Manning. That's what I would say is kind of equivalent to these two.
Yeah, and I see a comment says that Travis Kelce in Detroit would cook. I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and absolutely agree to it just based on, depends on Jared Goff, honestly, at the end of the day. Which Jared Goff are you going to get?
Let me also, too, preference by saying what I mean is, like, if Travis Kelce started his career in Detroit, right, and with all that Detroit has gone through in the same period of time, I don't know if Travis Kelce makes them a contender, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying today with, like, Jared Goff, where I'm not making the argument that if you substitute Kelce for Laporta, they're a Super Bowl contender. What I'm saying is if Travis Kelce was drafted by Detroit, had his career in Detroit with whatever quarterbacks or that organization's situation, does Travis Kelce then become Travis Kelce as he is on the Chiefs? And my argument would be no, because of the surrounding success that the Chiefs prepared them for. That's what my argument would be.
Yes.
All right, guys, are we good on that, or do you guys want to keep going?
Oh, let's go.
All right.
We're
By the
good,
way,
but I do
Meg,
think
shout out
I-
for the hot take on there. We love that. So
Yeah,
If you got
that
any-
was great.
if you got any
Yes.
more, just don't hesitate. Fire from the hip. Just keep them coming. So,
Will do.
all right. So, going to touch base a little bit on your Falcons. And we did kind of talk about how you became a Falcons fan from what you said, you lost a bet and you are now forevermore a Falcons fan. Is there a point where maybe you won't be a Falcons fan because of this bet that you lost?
No,
Okay.
it's a forever thing.
Okay, good.
Wow.
So yeah, it was one of those. I couldn't have named you 5 teams at this point when I lost this bet. I didn't really know what I was forfeiting and how dedicated I was going to become to the sport, and that I'm doing what I do now. And had I known back then what I know now, would I have chosen the Falcons as my team? No, I definitely wouldn't have. Like, it's
Okay,
and that's not me being disloyal.
Let's
That's
play
just-
let's play what if then. What team, if you had the choice and you didn't lose a bet and you were getting into the NFL, what team would you have picked if not the Falcons?
The Commanders.
Oh, okay. Hey, I like that. Good.
Respectable answer.
Yeah. What about the Commanders?
Honestly, if I was back then when it was just a case of pick a team, any team, I literally would have gone on color. I would have gone on my colors.
Okay.
So red, maroon is my color for my soccer team over here. And it was kind of, I don't know, the old Redskins logo and that kind of thing. Like, I've got quite a lot of heritage in that kind of sense. And so it just it drew me from the start. And in fact, I've got a Scary Terry jersey on its way to me right now.
Oh, cool.
From one of my lovely people on Discord, because I love Scary Terry. But yeah, I always say I've got a real soft spot for the Commanders, and if I wasn't a Falcons fan, I would support the Commanders. That's hands down the easiest answer.
That's respectable.
Yeah.
All right. So with the draft that just happened, how do you feel about the rookies that the Falcons have brought in?
It's a mixed bag for me, to be honest. So I had been doing mock drafts up until the day of, and even on the day of, I was changing up what I was thinking was going to happen. Obviously, nobody could have predicted the Showdown debate that happened. However, I had so many people. You guys are probably the same as me, but when it comes to draft, because this is only my second real draft that I've done, I became wildly obsessed, to the point where I would wake up in the middle of the night, I'd have a notebook beside me, just writing down crazy thoughts of what might happen. And last year I carried around this piece of raggedy paper for about 5 days prior to the draft, where I'd just written down every team's need and what 5 players would have been the best fit for that system and why they would have been the best fit. And then during the draft, I'm ticking them off, I'm highlighting them, I'm saying, right, they've gone here, so then this must go here. And this year was no different. It was, except I upgraded myself to a notebook instead of a piece of paper. My initial draft had us taken James Pierce Jr. at our first pick. and I wasn't happy about it. I really wasn't happy about it. Obviously, we see the comments coming out about him being uncoachable. I watched some of his tapes and I was like, I just can't get with the guy. I just can't get behind him because I don't think he's going to fit in with, at the time, the leadership style of Kirk Cousins. I think Michael Penix is still very new to have such strong characters to, obviously it's his job and I get that, but it concerned me, the James Pierce Jr. situation. I never thought Jalen Walker would still be available by the time we got to it. Yeah. And weirdly, I had sent him a message on Instagram the day of the draft being like, I just really want you to stay in Atlanta. Like, he'd tweeted he'd put something on his Instagram story and I replied to just be like, please stay in Atlanta. Obviously, I'm a Bulldogs fan as well. So, like, I was ready for Jalen Walker. I was ready for Malachi Starks even. Like, I'm looking at those decent players coming out thinking, ideally. And then, obviously, we took him and I was so happy, like, delighted. And then when we traded up for James Pierce Jr., I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, because didn't you guys give up a couple extra picks for him, right?
We gave up our first round next year.
Mm-hmm. I hope that's a home run for you guys.
That is not ever going to be a home run for us. Let's be honest. Like, in my head, what we were doing was we were trading up, giving away our first round because Kirk Cousins was going to the Browns and they were going to give us one of their multiple first round picks that they now have for next year. So my wild take was, it's fine. We've traded it away. Fair enough. Not ideal to James Pierce Jr. We're going to get one of the Browns' first round picks next year, which probably is going to be quite high up. We're probably going to get like top 10. And it's all going to be fine. We're going to be safe. Nope. Just wild nonsense coming out of the Falcons, frankly. But at least we got Jalen Walker, and Xavier Watts looks promising as well, to be fair. I'm not mad at that at all. I think another underrated player that could come through for us.
Yeah, he was a top ranked safety when you guys drafted him. He was one of the top ranked safeties going into the draft. So
yeah, I'm excited to see what we can. Obviously we all know that last season's our pass rush was just non-existent and our defense was just shoddy at best. And we needed to shore that up. And we have. So who knows what the season brings, to be fair. But yeah, I'm more optimistic this season than I was last season. But it's very cautiously optimistic. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I actually like James Pierce a lot going into the draft. I don't know if I like him enough to give up a next year's first round pick for it. But I think you'll like him better than you think. But he's going to have to overcome a little bit more knowing that you gave up the first round pick for him. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think James Pierce just as a draft pick would have been okay. But now you add like an extra first round pick to trade in for a defensive pass rusher. That's a bit much. But I like the Falcons draft. You're spot on. They need defense. Honestly, outside of like AJ Terrell and maybe Jesse Bates, they needed a lot of help defensively. And so I think they at least addressed positional needs, whether they pan out or not, but they at least hit the needs. Hopefully it pans out.
And they're rushing, like their pass rushing just hasn't been there. I know they brought in Matthew Judon to hopefully correct that. I mean, he did okay. It wasn't anything to be, excited about. I mean, you're in a division that's winnable, right? So you got to be able to get to the quarterbacks. And I think, take it from Matt and I who know all about bad trades for draft picks, right? I think James Pierce and Walker will be just fine. I think that adds depth. And I think Raheem Morris he's a good coach on the defensive side, right? Like, I think he'll get those young players ready to go. I think he'll coach those guys up. I think he'll get the best out of James Pierce. I really do. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it does suck that you had to give a first rounder for him. But I do think in the end, he's going to be a 10-sack guy. And I think he has that potential to be a 10-sack guy for the Falcons, who just haven't had something like that in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. We've obviously all the off-season news is that we've got a whole new system starting that's just being drilled in. So we've got, a lot of change going on, and whether it's just that they can see that potential to fit into that system that they've got, maybe,
I want to point out real quick, the Jalen Walker falling to them at 15 was crazy.
Absolutely.
Many people had him in the top 10. Okay. So the fact that he fell is just crazy to me. Now, I want to say I'm kind of mixed on the James Pierce, because on one hand, pairing him with Jalen Walker, I mean, that could be a dynamic duo for the next 5-10 years, right? But on the flip side of that, like you guys have already pointed out, is you gave up a first round next year. Now, here's where the real kind of mixed bag of emotions come into play. What if the Falcons go on and win the NFC South? Because I mean, like Cory just said, I mean, that division, anybody can, I mean, you can literally just pull out a name and that's going to be the winner that year. So what if Raheem Morris was like, hey, you know what? We have our quarterback of the future. We have a pretty solid offense. Where we got torched last year was on defense. Now you got Jalen Walker, who can play edge or linebacker, so he can drop back into coverage. And then you got James Pierce, who is a very agile, quick off the snap of the ball to get to the quarterback. And what if this is just a dynamic duo of edge rushers or pass rushers for the next 5 years? And this is what the Falcons need, because their secondary isn't that great. Although, Xavier Watts, former Notre Dame player, I honestly thought he could sneak into the late first round, maybe top of the second round. So the fact that he went third round kind of shocked me a little bit. So for me, I'm not 100% on the James Pierce, but at the same time, like, I can respect it, because the way to win ball games is put pressure on quarterbacks. If they don't have time to throw the ball, I don't care who you are. I mean, we saw it in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, when he was scrambling for his life, was not very effective in that game. So I think the fact that they got Jalen Walker, I would not have liked him if that was the pick by itself. If they would have went out and got James Pierce at 15, I would not have liked that at all. But pairing him with Jalen Walker, I think I can get behind it.
Yeah. So as far as my talking points go, I think they overall drafted pretty well. They knew what they needed on defense, and part of that was the secondary. And again, you got Xavier Watts, you got Billy Bowman. Both of them are top-ranked safeties. And if you look at it, the help that they needed by the time they played the Broncos and Falcons, that matchup, the Falcons had given up 17 touchdowns through the air. They were the 25th overall ranked defense, and they only had 9 sacks to their name. So personally, you have a lot of young talent. And like Cory said, Raheem Morris is a great head coach on the defensive side of the ball. So having that young talent with that defensive mindset and how he's able to develop these young defensive players, I'm pretty optimistic like you. I'm pretty optimistic that it's going to be like night and day. Again, coming from Cory and I, we had Vance Joseph. Neither one of us was sold on him, given his, less than memorable career in Denver already. And he turned that defense around. So I'm pretty sure Raheem is going to work wonders with the young talent that he has. So, I think the Falcons defense is going to be one to watch for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for filling in that. Meg got a couple of more Falcons questions for you. So we just talked about their defense, and obviously you gave a great point about their rookies that they brought in. But I'm curious now with the NFC South, with how that division is. And I think we can all agree that it's sort of on the weaker side of divisions, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about your Falcons being able to contend for the NFC South divisional crown?
I think last season our biggest worry, even from the start of the season, was the Bucks. They were the main point of, keep your eye on them, because they're the biggest rivals. And obviously, they won out in that last showdown of the division. I think the Panthers are one to watch this season. I think that we saw Bryce Young really coming into his own at the end of last season, and I think not to be sniffed at. They had a good draft. They have had a decent off season. Bryce Young's got that little bit more experience behind him now. I wouldn't be sleeping on the Panthers, is what I'm saying this season. I think they're going to come out hot. I think the Saints are they're a mess, let's be honest. And that's not just because they're our biggest rival. They're just a shambles right now. In terms of their QB room, somebody posted, "Oh, look at the 3 greatest QBs." And I was like, what? Am I missing people in this picture? Like, what? Because I don't think they've got anything substantial to stand on for this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for us, we've always had, this is the problem, we've got the weapons, it's getting them to play together in that chemistry that we need, that just makes that magic happen. You look at Bijan, you look at Mooney, you look at, Jesse Bates, he was not optimized last season at all. You look at Kyle Pitts, there's so many things that we could be doing that we're still getting the Arthur Smith system out of Atlanta. Let's be honest, it didn't work, hasn't worked, needed to be overhauled. A lot of these players have kind of been caught in the crossover, I feel, between Raheem Morris settling in, obviously Kirk Cousins shitting all over him, and then the changeover. I feel like this season is our time to tap into the talent that we've got on that offensive side, because our wide receiver room on paper is top in the league, not the top, but in the top 10 conversation. Running back, we've got the weapons, it's just a matter of using them. Like I said, I think the NFC South is going to be, it's not as up there as competitive, for the next few years anyway, until the Saints get their finger out their ass and maybe find a quarterback or do some drastic changes. But yeah, I think it's going to be closer than we think between the Bucs, the Panthers, and the Falcons next season. I really do.
Yeah, and I told you guys a few weeks back that the Panthers were going to be my sleeper team. Well, since this is technically an NFC South episode, I can now officially say Panthers are my sleeper team. I do actually like the Panthers to maybe win the division at 10 wins. I love what Bryce Young was able to do when he came back, and that's not taking anything away from the Falcons, but I trust the Panthers offense and where they're going than I do the Falcons and where their offense is going. Could I be wrong? Yes, it all depends on Michael Penix. Is Penix going to stay healthy? Are they going to actually utilize Bijan the correct way? Are they going to find a way to utilize Kyle Pitts? So until I can see that, I'm going based on what I was able to see the second half of the season for the Panthers last year. And yeah, I know the Bucs, but I'm on the Panthers bandwagon this season. Give me the Panthers to win the South, but I still like Atlanta if they can get that offense figured out.
Yeah, and I actually, when I was taking notes, I put percentage points for what I thought. I gave them a 50% chance because I hear the Panthers hype, but I still think it comes down to the Bucs or Falcons. And I think the main difference right now is quarterback play. I mean, Baker Mayfield right now, with the weapons that he has in that division right now, I still think they have to be the favorites. But if Penix can come out and just be not even an elite level quarterback, right? If he can come out and be like an Alex Smith and just use what he has around him. And I think with where the defense has potential to be, I do think it could turn into a 2-team race between the Bucs and Falcons. That's why I gave Falcons a 50-50 shot, because I really think it comes down to those two. And it's going to come down to the quarterback play. Is Penix going to come around? If not, then I think the Bucs walk away with the division. If Penix progresses and looks decent, then I think you could have a two-horse race for the South this year.
Yeah, no, same. Honestly, I would kind of compare the NFC South kind of like the AFC West with that young talent. You have a lot of young talent. You have a couple new head coaches. One's going into his second year and whatnot. So you have a lot of young talent, especially with the Falcons and the Panthers. And me, I'm a coach guy. And your quarterback's only going to do as well as your coach is going to develop him. So Bryce Young was being failed over there in Carolina. And I think now that he's got, I still butcher this guy's name, Ticonderoga Pencil, whatever his name is, the kid out of Arizona.
Just call him Ted. I mean, that's what we all do.
Just call him T-Mac.
Yeah.
I'll call him Ted.
No, don't call him T-Mac because I think of Tracy McGrady.
Well, don't think of Tracy McGrady then.
Okay.
I'll call him Tetris. All right, Tetris.
There you go.
I will call him Tetris. He is Tetris. So you got Tetris. You have young receiver talent. You have a coach that I think now with the weapons around him, you can kind of start from scratch and just – I feel like, I feel like the Panthers are going to sneak their way into the playoffs. Like, I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think they'll sneak their way into the playoffs. And, last year it came down to the Falcons and the Bucs winning that division. And in the end, the Bucs ended up pulling ahead and getting in that final spot in the playoffs. And I think you're going to see more of that. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if all three, the Falcons, Panthers, and Bucs make it. I still think the Bucs are going to take the division, but the Falcons are going to give them a run for the money. I mean, if you look at their offense, they were a high-flying offense. I was actually really nervous when Denver matched up with them just because I'm not sold on Riley Moss, and with your receiving core, I was really, really worried how we were going to handle that. But, again, I think you got a lot of young talent. You have coaches kind of like starting to figure out their systems. So it's going to be a very competitive division.
All right. So I guess I'm the only one here not that big on the Panthers because not so fast, everybody. Pump the brakes just a little. Bryce Young did show improvements. I think the Panthers are still just a little bit off from being a serious playoff contender. Now, with that said, like Matt just said, it's going to turn into a two-headed race, all right? Bucks, Falcons, Saints, sorry, not your year. Won't be your year. Never was your year. From the moment you pass on Shadur Sanders, it never became your year. So, Saints, back of the line. See you next season. All right, now, I think that the Falcons have made moves. We just talked about their draft class. I think the rookies can come in. Raheem Morris is a good coach. I think what it's going to come down to is, can Baker Mayfield sustain the same level of play without his offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, from this past season? And if the answer is no, then the Falcons will win this division easily. If we get, pretty much the same play that Baker had last season and the defense does this job, Falcons will be a close second. I don't think that there will be 3 representatives from the NFC South. At best, you'll get 2. But honestly, I really think that whoever wins the division is going to be the sole representative in this NFC South. I want to see what Michael Penix can do in a full season. We got to see glimpses of him last season, so we don't know his true potential yet. So I don't know if I'm quite there on putting the Falcons above the Bucs, but I'm not saying that it's, it's definitely doable. But currently on June 11th, or I think it is, I am not putting the Atlanta Falcons above the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just quite yet, but it is very close. I will say that.
Yeah, I think what I'll close out this question with before we get to our final one is I think the Falcons are the most mysterious team in this division where they're taking a lot of swings. In the last 2 drafts, they've taken major swings. We just kind of talked about it earlier with them drafting Penix after signing Kirk Cousins to a guaranteed contract coming off of an Achilles injury from the prior season. And then with them, I don't know if you want to call it reaching for getting James Pierce Jr., but the fact that they gave up an extra first-round pick to get back into the first to then get Pierce Jr., they're taking a lot of swings. And some part of me thinks that the Falcons are outsmarting themselves, trying to think that they're the smartest organization in the room, and they're kind of tricking themselves. But at the same time, if a lot of these things hit, like if Penix hits, and with the offense and that line with Bijan and the crew that he has at the receiving helm, I think that this could be a pretty potent offense. Their defense, I really trust Raheem Morris with this defense, and there's a lot of pieces there. Can they just be a cohesive unit for all 18 weeks? I think that's the biggest question. So I would say like the Bucs right now, only because they've proven they get into the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, at least to the wild card. I think the Falcons, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they're knocking on the door. My ultimate feeling, though, is I think in this NFC South division, it's going to take 10 games to win this division. And if I'm not mistaken, the Falcons swept the Buccaneers last season. So I think that the Falcons have a pretty good shot if all things work together. And to your credit, Meg, you even said that Arthur Smith regime, there's still a little bit of it of last season. So hopefully like the last of it has been flushed out. And if that's the case, then we're going to see a far more disciplined Atlanta Falcons team. And if they're far more disciplined, I feel like the Falcons are a really good team to really take this division, even if the Panthers have a pretty big leap forward. Because again, and I agree with a lot of everybody. If Bryce Young is that guy, then I think Panthers take that leap. I don't know if they take a bigger leap than the Falcons, because I feel like the Panthers still have more to fix. Like, I feel like they got a good quarterback, but they need a lot more pieces before it's really to the next level. And I think the Falcons respectively are closer. If we were to, obviously if we were to see how it all ends, I think the Falcons would be closer to getting into the postseason than the Panthers in my initial feeling. So that's what I'll say about that in terms of the NFC South. All right. Last question for you, Meg. What do you think the biggest challenges are for the Atlanta Falcons? And secondary question, I would love for you to predict what you think their record will be at the end of the season.
Biggest challenge, I think, is just like I said, that gel between the younger players, the rookies coming in, making sure that they're equipped to make that jump. I think that's one thing. Obviously, James Pierce Jr. has been described as uncoachable. I think the style that Raheem Morris kind of coaches in, and we've not seen a lot of it necessarily outwardly in the press, but we do see it. If you follow the Falcon stuff specifically, you see that he's actually very, very good at the kind of relationship building with his team. It's kind of a core of his ethics, his values, is to make it so that they've got that kind of, I don't know, relationship where they respect and listen to what he's going to say. I think, making sure that those younger players are getting the right guidance to make that leap is the biggest thing for the Falcons this season. I think obviously tight end is going to be something that's questioned if Kyle Pitts stays or not. It was clear last season that he was unhappy. Whether that changes, like we've said, under Penix, who knows? I think, from watching them together, I do think that they are better than Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts were, for sure. Mm-hmm. Hands down. So less obvious issues than last season. Mm-hmm. To be fair. But and I think so. I've been doing a little mini series on my socials where I predict every single team's season record, and I go through game by game. Yeah. So my prediction is the Falcons go 11-6 this season, which is wild because we know that 8 and 9 is our favorite and 7 and 10 is our favorite. But I think this season we're going to have a winning season. I'm cautiously optimistic about it.
So was it ChatGPT that chose that record, or was it you that chose the 11-6 record?
So I chose the 11-6 record. I can't remember what ChatGPT gave me. I think it was something like 5 and 12. So, great. But they have also predicted that the what team was it, that the Browns were going to go like 15 and 2. So, realistically, ChatGPT chats shit about what predictions are for the next season.
ChatGPT is drunk. Come get this thing. What?
Yeah, someone fetch his ass home. Like
out of 28 possibilities, 3 were realistic.
Yeah, literally. If you watch the series, you'll see some of them are just wild. I'm pretty confident that I'm winning my battle against ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think the bar is pretty low for ChatGPT.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. But 11-6 is my optimistic prediction for next season.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's kind of where I would think they would be. I think you get easy division wins, but I think obviously the biggest challenge is a 28-3 lead. I don't know if you were a fan of that or not, or kind of
timeline. She wasn't. So
was not what. I was no part of this, so I'm just saying it didn't happen.
Okay,
this is the logic that I'm going for. Girl math, that is, I wasn't there, so it didn't happen.
Okay.
Can't.
That means my question that I was going to have for you just because I've been asked a lot after this last Super Bowl of like, how's it feel to just get demolished in a Super Bowl? So I was going to ask how that 28-3 defeat tasted, but I couldn't remember the timeline. If since it didn't happen, I don't know if I can ask a question that doesn't exist.
There
No,
you
I
go.
mean,
Patrick Farms remembers.
hypothetically, if it did happen, it would be awful if people brought it up every single time you say you're a Falcons fan, because that seems to be the pattern is, oh, you're a Falcons fan, 28-3. And I don't know if you saw the social media post that they put out on Twitter last week where they had, I can't remember who they even had on the field, but they had 28-3 out, and they were basically saying, like, they posted them side by side, the two players 28-3, and the Falcons fans were like, take this down immediately. And they did remove it, they did take it down, but it was up there for a good couple of hours before anybody on their social media team fixed that massive mistake there.
Yeah, so since it didn't happen, I won't ask the question, but I just
Yeah.
thought it was, lately I've been getting a lot of questions of like how to feel to get rocked in the Super Bowl. So I'm like, you know what? Let's turn some of that heat towards like blowing that lead in the Super Bowl. But since it didn't happen, we can't really speak on it too much. So I guess I'll still take the heat of getting beat down in the Super Bowl.
One of the things that for me that I feel, the Falcons, their biggest that they need to overcome this season. First and foremost, you got to get the rookie going. Like set up some easy, quick passes to get him in rhythm early. You don't want to ruin his confidence. Week one as being the full-time starter. So that right there is like a big obstacle that they have to overcome. Give Kyle Pitts the ball. You have this quote unquote superstar tight end that you don't know how to use. Like, in last season on my show, I even said, for fantasy purposes, I would trade Kyle Pitts away for a Big Mac and a small fry. Okay. So the fact that like you have this quote unquote first round superstar tight end, which he is very athletic. I'm not taking anything away from him. I don't think that they should have drafted him, as high as they did, but that's a different story, different conversation. I really think the Michael Penix to Kyle Pitts connection needs to happen often, and it needs to happen very early in the season. Build that chemistry. So that for me, it's just getting the young guy, really familiar with the offense and set him up to be successful. You don't want him to go out and struggle out of the gate, and then his confidence is wrecked, and then all of a sudden now you have all the money invested in Kirk Cousins and the high draft pick invested in Michael Penix, and neither one of them has turned out to be your quarterback. So I really want to see Michael Penix, get in rhythm early. Week one, I want him to light up the stat sheet, and I want him to have high completion ratio for me. And if that happens, then I'll kind of be sold that the Falcons might actually do something. I can't give you a prediction because, Meg, you have kind of inspired me to do a team-by-team prediction. I'm not comparing it to Chat GPT like you do. I'm just kind of doing like a 32 teams a summer, and I'm going to go division by division and pick what I think the final record will be. So maybe the NFC South will be the first division that I take on, but I don't want to give any spoilers away from that. So
yeah, no, and I kind of have a question again, and these fellas know that I'm a big defensive guy, so I got to have one defensive question, and it kind of circles back to the earlier of like who gets overshadowed. For me, my first thought was AJ Terrell. I think he's one of the better corners in the league, but you never hear his name get brought up. So I kind of just, with you, who kind of you've really been diving in the last couple of years and like studying up the diving into him. I want to get your take on, is he overlooked? Is he not maybe as great as I think? Because I obviously don't watch nonstop Falcons games, right? Like highlights here, there, and like follow him on sports. But to me, I always thought he was one of the better corners that nobody ever mentions. So I just kind of want to get your thought on, like, is he accurately rated? Is he just a good corner and not a great corner, or where you think he should be in the conversation?
I think, my first Falcons jersey was a Grady Jarrett jersey, and I've got 3 of them now. That hands down my favorite defensive player. Obviously, we're not talking about him because RIP. But like AJ Terrell is decent. I wouldn't say, in discussions for the top of all time. Nowhere like that. I think he's good. Again, I think the system didn't necessarily fit with AJ Terrell until this point. I think that there's more promise going into next season for him than there has been previously. I think making way for that new defense system really coming in, it's either going to make or break him. I think we're going to, this season will be the decider on that for AJ Terrell, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, I don't massively rate him. But then I'm not a massive Jesse Bates fan either, where, some Falcons fans will die on that hill and say, Jesse Bates doesn't get enough credit. Yeah. Watch the space for AJ Terrell. For me personally, I could take or leave him. And that might be because of my dedication to my boy Grady Jarrett. But, who knows? Who knows what the season's going to bring for any of them, because it is a new system and it is, very, especially on the defense, a new team.
Yeah, no, I get that. That Chiefs had a player like that recently where the fans would die on a hill thinking he was the best safety in the league, and Tyrann Mathieu. And it's like, anyone who knows football knows that, like, he really wasn't that good on the field. So I get that, if you actually watch a little bit and kind of actually see it, then you realize that just because they're on your team, they're not the greatest ever, right?
Yeah.
They're not as good as you think. So no, I love that feedback and that input, the honest input of it, right?
Yeah, gotta be honest. Realistic.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good that you brought up, like, talking about, like, a new system. Everyone's learning a new system, trying to find their place in it, because one of the things I wanted to bring up was their biggest challenge is remaining consistent, and that was something the Falcons struggled with last year. They started out hot. I mean, a lot of people had them like they were going to be in the number 1 or number 2 seed in the NFC going into the playoffs. And, Kirk Cousins with that 500+ yard game, on prime time. And then they just kind of like fizzled out after that. So now one of the challenges is like, like you said, how well are they going to gel? These are all new players coming together. How are they going to gel together? How are they going to pick up this new system? And then once they pick it up, are they going to stick with it? Are they going to grasp it and just be consistent and continue to perform? And then Penix, like they always say, a good player makes himself better, but great players make everyone around them better. So can he start getting Pitts more involved in the offense? Because, Pitts was inconsistent. He would have a great game. I call him the Chris Bosh of the NFC South. Either he don't have an in-between game. Either he's on fire or he's ice cold. So, is he going to consistently be involved in the game? So can Penix get him involved? Can Morris get him involved? So one of my challenges was like, how are they going to be consistent, and can they remain consistent?
And I think when you refer to last season, the problem that we had with Cousins was actually, if you look back at even the opening games where we looked to be coming in hot, Kirk Cousins wasn't on form. He really wasn't. He was hesitant. He was slow out the pocket. He was, every decision seemed painstaking in the amount of time it took to make. And yet we still managed to look good in some respects. And unfortunately, what happened when we fizzled out and we became less consistent is, I would argue, wasn't necessarily that much changed. It was that you can only do so much without a strong leader and a QB that knows what they're doing and will make those decisions before your team starts to get frustrated with you, before, nobody really knew what Cousins was going to do next because he was so unpredictable in the way that he did things. And everybody from the fans to the team to some of the coaching staff were calling for Penix to be subbed on, much earlier than he was. And I think where you saw us starting to fall off with our season was actually when that frustration became more and more into the game rather than just external fans saying get him off. It started to be the players. Kyle Pitts' frustration. He did not want to be in Atlanta at the end of last season. That spilled over into the off season. Even with Penix, when yes, he has good plays with Kyle Pitts. However, his favoured player to pass to is Darnell Mooney. And the chemistry between Mooney and Penix is absolute fire. Watch out for that coming this season, because it is, when you see those two together, that there is a little bit of that magic there that you can see the connection. Mooney seems to be able to preempt whatever Penix is going to do next. And we saw that in the last few games of the season, you know. Yeah, I think Kadarius Hodge is going to get more time. I think Mooney's definitely up there. But in terms of consistency, I think it's down to Penix, isn't it? It's down to Penix and the coaches to start forming that consistency more so than the kind of blind leading the blind of Kirk Cousins just wildly doing his own thing and being too scared to get hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with Penix coming into essentially his second year and getting now a full offseason with like pro style and with this coaching staff. And I've been seeing clips too of Drake London and Michael Penix really connecting in training camp and Darnell Mooney. I mean, if Kyle Pitts has found a way to be incorporated, which I don't understand why he's not, and I'm sure, Meg, it's a frustration for you as being a Falcons fan. But in my opinion, if the Falcons can put it all together offensively, they're a top 5 offense with how they're constructed with all the pieces around them. And that could make them a dangerous team, not only in the NFC South, but in the NFC in general, because they've got such a powerhouse. But I would say, though, that I think I'm going to, as much as 11-6 sounds pretty much like it's on the trail for that on paper, I think conservatively, I'm going to say 10-7 for the Falcons. I still think they'll win the division, but I think 10-7 for the Falcons, and they've got to sweep the Bucs, because if they tie break with the Bucs might take that division just because they're a little bit more battle tested when it comes to playoff push. But I think the Falcons might surprise some people. And like I said, I think Raheem Morris is a better coach than people give him respect for. And I think his defense is going to come to play this season.
Absolutely.
Tim?
I have a question for you, Meg, seeing how we're in the AFC West war room. And you gave us your Falcons prediction. Give us your AFC West predictions. Broncos,
Okay.
Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers.
Let's go then. So the Broncos, I've got an 11-6.
Okay.
The Chiefs, I've got a 13-4.
What?
Whoa.
The Raiders, I've got 6-11.
Oh, this is horse shit.
Beep, 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 beep.
And the Chargers, I've got a 10-7.
10-7. Okay, so you
gotta
have the Chiefs
Flip this desk
winning.
over. What?
The Chiefs winning. The Broncos in second. The Chargers in third. With those records, do you think the 3 teams from the AFC West would represent in the playoffs, or is it looking like you have the Chargers missing the playoffs?
No, I've got the Chargers in the playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Meg, it was nice having you on the show. We're going to sign off now.
13-4 for the Chiefs, I will say is I mean, it's not crazy, but it's like at the same time, it's a little crazy.
This is just to let you know, this is what that looks like on paper.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
That's
color
numbers
coded.
It's color
Yeah.
coordinated. There's numbers, there's playoffs in the bottom, there's all sorts. I'm giving you a sneak preview of my predictions for the end of
Matt
the season.
just saw a whole bunch of squares.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
light gray, dark gray, and medium gray.
I gotta be honest. I think her predictions, though. I think she may
Cody,
have the most sports knowledge out of any of us.
What was that?
She might have the most sports knowledge out of any of us. Now that I know what her standings for the AFC West are, very knowledgeable. Very accurate.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think
Someone
the Raiders-
says the Chiefs are 13-4. Yes, of course, Austin, you would think.
I
Hey,
don't
I mean,
agree
Cody,
with
the Raiders at 6-11 isn't far off. I mean,
That's
Okay,
because you're
got
a
a
global
tough
general
start.
better than you.
I had them going 7-10. So I mean, 6-11 isn't far off, bud.
I mean, okay, look, I'm bloviating a lot, but sure, like 6-11 is closer to realistic than what my hope is. But damn it, don't squander my hope, okay? All right, I'm tired of this. Every offseason we go through this hype, and I just want a good season. Don't put this bad energy out there, okay?
You've got
need
Ashton
this.
Shanti. Anything could happen. Anything could happen with
Oh,
Shanti.
hey, May, quick question. Would you rather have Ashton Genty or Amari and Hampton?
Oh my god.
Ashton Genty.
Oh, okay, great.
Man, that was
Thanks for setting
I
it up for us.
did, but I did predict Amari and Hampton going where he went. That was one of my correct
But
predictions.
you would choose Genty over
I would-
Hampton.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
easily.
great. I'm just asking. All right, Tim,
Tim,
back
did
to
you
you. Did
hear
you have any
that?
other questions?
Yeah, like, can you not come up with any fresh questions, to ask a guest? I mean,
Every
that was
guest
so
comes-
episode 1. So episode 1.
Well, you just came up with the AFC West predictions. That was episode 1 or 2, I think.
This is the AFC West War Room. Why would I not bring up predictions for the guest? I mean, come on now.
Both running backs are AFC West.
Yes. Although I think we would agree, though, that Bijan has an argument in this conversation amongst the three of them. So I'll pay that respect to the Falcons and Bijan for sure.
Bijan is way better than all three. What is happening?
Huh?
Bijan blows both of them out of the water.
Oh, I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm just saying, like, we're respecting Bijan in this conversation as well. Like, he's one of the top ones. So
Bijan deserves better than the Falcons. I'm sorry, Meg, but he does.
I agree. But I'm grateful forever.
Yeah.
all right. I think that's it. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to ask Meg? Or Meg, would you like to have the floor and give any hot take about the NFC South, your Falcons, or the AFC West? I mean, this is the War Room, so shoot any shot you want. Or if anyone has any questions for Meg any further before we close it out.
I don't have anything.
A lot of shaking heads. Okay. All right.
I think we'll give the guest the kind of final call, essentially. Kind of let her spiel for a second.
Yeah, no, I'm good. It's been fun. It's been lots of fun. Obviously, I don't tend to get a lot of AFC conversations in most of the time because it tends to be, people rivals on the NFC side. But yeah, loads and loads of fun. So
Awesome.
it'll be
Meg.
interesting to see how it all pans out.
Do you want to go ahead and plug your show, your socials, all that good stuff?
Yeah, my username's the same on everything, so it's at ballers_meg. But just launched the website ballersmeg.com as well, so weekly NFL and NBA articles and fan zone for people to get involved in. If you want to write for it, then the fan zone is open for writers as well. Yeah, watch this space. There's lots and lots of things coming. I've got some big announcements to make on socials in the next few days as well, so keep an eye out for that.
Very cool. We'll definitely be the first ones to see it and also support you and giving it a shout out. And Meg, again, thank you for joining the AFC West War Room. We had a ton of fun. I know I did. And so I really appreciate your Falcons takes and your takes on the show in general. So hopefully we can have you back on the show in the near future.
Thank you. Definitely be back if you'll have
All right.
me.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, this is the AFC West War Room. Want to give a shout out to Hulu, Factor, and HelloFresh, partners of the show. Descriptions or links of description below to get special products and special deals. So check that out as well. Fellas, go ahead and do sign off and then we'll close out the show.
Maybe
Tim?
we'll start with you.
Well, as you all know, Tim here representing the Chargers. Answer the Call podcast. Remember, if you want to talk ball, we'll answer the call.
Yeah, and again, we're thankful, Meg, for you coming on. And I tell you, the lead up to this, we've been really excited. I think we've talked about it nonstop. About we wanted to make sure you had a great experience on this show. So we're extremely happy and thrilled. And yes, we will definitely have you back on. I can speak for everybody, I feel like, on that. But I'm Cory. This is Austin. We're Shovick Sports. Come find us on all the socials: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I don't have a cool catchphrase like Timmy, but we do have the Shovengers. So thanks to Shovengers who tuned in tonight.
Yep. Nope. I know he introduced me, Austin, co-host Shovick Sports. I just want to make sure we also thank you, Meg, for hopping on here. We've been really excited since we knew this was happening. We've kind of talked about it, not all day, every day, but we've mentioned every day of how excited we were for tonight's episode. So we really appreciate you hopping on here early morning your time, and it was a fantastic experience. And my brother was correct. I do think he can speak for everyone that we'll absolutely try to get you back on in the future. Absolute blast. So thank you.
Yeah. So I don't have any cool fan base nickname or a catchphrase to end the show, but again, Meg, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to have you. Next time you come on, I'll make sure I have color vision assist on there. So that way I can actually read what you're showing. So yeah, I'll work on that for you. But, again, I don't have a cool catchphrase other than like, I don't have a podcast of my own, but I will join yours. So thanks again.
All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. We're signing off. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, share, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next week.